Hey guys, you are watching Daniel and Gian talk, and today we are going to review Chak India. It's about a shamed field hockey star who coaches India's women's national team. Guess what happens at the end?
They win. What?
They win the gold. They won the World Cup, the gold medal, whatever. So it kind of. We start off with Kabir Khan, that's Shahrukh Khan's character. We start off with him in the finals against Pakistan, and
he blows it.
He blows it
big time.
He tries to be the hero at the end of the game instead of passing, gets fouled, and then he has to take a penalty shot and misses the penalty shot badly.
But terribly.
And then while he's on his knees, lamenting the loss, one of the players from Pakistan comes up and shakes his hand, and a paparazzi guy takes photos, and because of those photos, they make it seem like he rigged the game and that he was on Pakistan's side. And now
ridiculous.
That we know relations between India and Pakistan, if you're going to lose to anybody, you don't want to lose to Pakistan, and you're not supposed to shake their hands, apparently. No good sportsmanship when it comes to the enemy. But anyways, this ruins his life. He has to move out of his
house that his dad was his dad or the grandpa.
It's either his father or his grandfather, but basically his family house. He has to move out of his house with his mother because of how much shame they're getting from the rest of the villagers.
I mean, they literally tag traitor on his front porch.
7 years passes. India's women's national program. No respect, number one, because they're women. And nobody.
Most importantly,
that's the main issue. Is they're women. Nobody cares about them. Nobody wants to coach them. But Kabir Khan comes out of nowhere because he probably, I don't know. They don't really build up how they got a hold of him, but it's basically his only chance to get back into the sport.
It was just for the movie.
Sport. Yeah,
it was for the movie.
So he gets in and he turns the team around, a la Mighty Ducks, a la Remember the Titans. So this is a very traditional sports epic movie, but I don't mean that as a slight. It's
by the numbers.
It's by the numbers. It's definitely nothing crazy happens in this movie,
I mean, there's little moments thrown in here or there that make this one, stand out from other ones. But for the most part, you kind of know where the story's going.
Yeah.
You know what the beats are going to be. When certain moments do happen, you kind of expect them to happen.
There was no twist in this movie at all.
Which is okay. Movies don't need twists.
No.
But this didn't reinvent the genre.
No, definitely not. And I mean, and I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. We watched Dangal before this, and I think that kind of
spoiled it.
That spoiled it a little bit, yeah, because Dangal's just on a different level, and
it took that formula and then spun it around.
Yeah,
and it did
a little different because in Dangal they use the same formula in the first half of the movie, but in the second half of the movie it just turned into a completely different movie, and I think that's what made it very different. Because it's like, okay, we're gonna do the traditional by the numbers sports movie, but we're gonna end it in an hour, and then the real movie's gonna start after that.
They also because the other thing for me personally is I watched hockey growing up. Not like heavily, but ice hockey, I mean. So field hockey to me is really foreign, and it didn't draw me in as much as, let's say wrestling or something. But that also is because they didn't explain the sport, which is okay because obviously the audience probably knows what field hockey is.
Yeah,
so
this movie wasn't made for us.
That's not a bad thing. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying as an outside viewer watching it, it was a little more difficult to, I wouldn't say be engaged, but to feel those suspenseful moments because, I'm just not 100% used to it yet. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't work. It definitely did.
Which is interesting because I think the beginning of the movie when you introduce Kabir Khan, I was not expecting all of that to go down. That was actually different for me.
Absolutely, because that would never happen in this country.
No,
ever. I mean, there's people who'd be angry. Don't get me wrong.
Right, but no one would have to.
One would
have to leave their where they live and move to another town completely and hide and
no matter what the circumstances are. I mean, I'm trying to think. Maybe if the game was fixed, people would get run out of town and people bet their lives on, a baseball game or a basketball game or whatever, and then you find out that the results were fixed.
Yeah.
And then they like maybe, and obviously that's what the twist is here.
Right.
But, and we'll get to this later, but it clearly had more to do with India-Pakistan relations as opposed to like if the same event were to have happened and it was India versus Australia.
Yeah.
And if it was guys and they lost, they probably wouldn't have tried to kill him. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or whatever, shame him as much as they did. How did the story work for you?
I mean, the story worked fine. There's some very interesting stuff. Like right off the bat, when the girls come to sign up, when the girls show up, that was really cool because we learned like about all these different states of India that we still like. You guys haven't even told us about. I wrote one of them down. The girl that couldn't speak Hindi or English, that was riding elephants. She's from, I think it was
the bush. That's what my subtitle said.
Jharkhand. She's from Jharkhand.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I love that. And then you have the two like Asian quote unquote looking girls.
The two East Asian looking girls.
Chow mein. That's what they.
Yeah, where one of them called him chow mein, and the guys were hollering at him because they didn't realize that they spoke Hindi. They thought they were from China or Japan or.
And by hollering we mean hitting on.
Yeah, like catcalling. And that was cool too. Like you guys have actually told us in the comments. I think one of the Rocky Handsome scene, there was a Chinese looking guy, and we're like, oh, we were wondering if they brought people in from Hong Kong. For you guys know, you said there's regions in India.
Which just goes to show how big India is.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was interesting. That was cool to see that.
It was, what was really interesting. It made me think. I like what you just said. Like I liked all the different cultures that were coming for this team, and it might have been super stereotypical because as an outsider, we're not going to know the difference.
Right.
So like someone in India might be like, yeah, well that's stereotypically what someone looks like from Tamil or whatever, et cetera, et cetera.
Telugu.
Well, there was that whole scene. That was another good scene. But what it made me think of is we're kind of all the same. And I mean, in terms, I looked at the people on the team. I'm like, I can kind of see American counterparts. I'm sure if I started to figure out the culture, I could see that there's probably the Mexicans of the group, the more indigenous of the group, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Obviously, it's not going to match up exactly, but it was able to help me like just get involved on a human level.
Relate to it a little more.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even though they weren't writing it for us or anything, it's just I was able to see parallels.
But it was good seeing because it's kind of established like there's different parts of India. Like from in a Western eyes, it's all the same to us.
Right.
So to have this little section, and even though this movie wasn't made for us,
right,
for Westerners, it helped us kind of see like these girls are from different states. They don't necessarily get along or even able to communicate with each other. And it caused more tension when it came to trying to put the team together, which was good. It was smart
because it helped build the team. Like when Kabir finally quits, quote unquote, and it gets to that big McDonald's fight scene, which I'll talk about in a second. It earned it, and that's important.
Yeah,
it earned like I was able to see like, oh, he's making them all hate. Like I didn't see that in terms of like beats. I mean, I saw it before he revealed like that's what I'm trying to do. Like everyone hate me,
right?
But one that's like once everyone was like angry and like they're all like, all right, let's sign this petition or whatever. I'm like, oh, I get it. It makes sense. And then everything started to fall in line after that. But it definitely earned the moment is what I'm trying to say.
And question, are women from Punjab that angry? I grew up with a lot of people from Punjab. I don't remember them being that pissed off, but that big girl, she was not a happy camper.
No, she was angry.
Yeah.
She just needed some water though, apparently. But it came from her family too, because when her mom came at the end, like she was like, "You need to calm down." I mean, it was cool. That McDonald's scene though, I want to know like how much do you think McDonald's paid the production to be involved?
I don't know. That's a good question.
This is 2007, so McDonald's is clearly still top of the world in terms of fast food.
I mean,
was it a new restaurant that they opened that they wanted to show off?
McDonald's has started opening more in other places for the first time in the last 15 years. Like it hasn't always been there like we think. They've been expanding their garbage empire. And
hey man, I like McDonald's. Yeah, but so did the Indian hockey team. They liked it too.
Yeah, I thought
clearly Kabir liked it because
that kind of tripped me out when he was like, "I'm going to take them out to lunch," and then they go to McDonald's, and I was like,
"So like to us, that's a joke.
Yeah,
like that would be a joke right off the bat."
But that was definitely product placement.
So that's what I was going to ask.
Product placement
Do you
and a
think
half.
it was a joke? Do you think it's a joke in India?
No, I don't think it was a joke. I think that was. I mean, we'd have to look up and see when it. I mean, you have your laptop. Look and see when the first McDonald's opened in India. You know, and if it correlates around the time of this movie, then it makes sense.
1996.
Okay, so then it doesn't really correlate that much. You guys could tell us. Like,
But I mean, 10 years is not that long for a company to
No.
be in the place.
no, and I can't remember exactly what city they were in either.
Yeah.
You know, I think
That's
they
true.
mentioned it, but it just was the city wasn't an important part of the movie.
It was also according to Quora, this says McDonald's opened its doors in India, the 95th country in 1996. The first McDonald's restaurant opened October 13th, 1996 at Basant Lok. I can't say it. Sorry. Basant Vihar, New Delhi. Okay. It was also the first McDonald's in the world to not serve beef on its menu. Interesting.
That makes
I mean,
sense.
it makes sense,
Yeah.
obviously, but obviously we know McDonald's is a beef serving place, so I'm curious what the menu is. I'm
Well,
gonna Google it.
Honestly, they're not serving beef. They're serving mealworms. This has been confirmed.
Well, mealworms taste great.
Hey, I'm not gonna co-sign on that. McDonald's burgers do not taste great. They're like they're like the worst burgers of all the fast
They
food
don't
chains.
taste great. But
They just taste different. They have their own taste because they're made of mealworms.
not to make this about McDonald's.
Yeah.
So
And you guys can tell us how you feel about McDonald's, but McDonald's is like
no. McDonald's has good fries.
McDonald's is the most well-known fast food place and like the least critically acclaimed. Like people,
I like their French fries.
okay, they're good fries. You're gonna go out of the way. You sound like this other podcast I listen to. These guys, they buy their burgers at In-N-Out, and then they go to McDonald's to get their fries. Like,
Dude, I've never tried that.
I'm not gonna make 2 stops for fast food.
Okay, we need to scale this back because we're losing viewers here. So back to the movie. What did you think about that scene? Since I brought up McDonald's, because that was probably the most over the top scene. But
I mean, I thought it was a fun scene.
I was gonna say it was a good character building scene.
Yeah, it was a fun scene. You know, you have
united the team.
and it's also throws you like a little curveball there because you think that one, what's her name? Her name is not India. It's
Bindiya.
Bindiya. Like in that scene, you see she kicks dudes in the nuts. So you think like
There's
she's
some good slaps in there too.
Oh yeah, you think she's finally getting involved, like finally become part of the team, but that quickly goes away. You know, and she doesn't redeem herself until the very end, which I liked. I mean, I knew it was going to happen, but I liked how she didn't off the bat.
She never gave in.
Yeah, she never gave in until basically she didn't give in until
she
the
didn't
coach.
really give in at all.
No, she became a part of the team when the coach finally like realized that he needed her. When Kabir decided like, hey, this is the only way we're going to beat Korea is by using her. Then finally she softened up and she started becoming part of the team.
Which was helpful.
And she kind of had a point. She's a veteran player. She wasn't getting any respect.
She also tried to flirt with
She also tried to
Kabir,
seduce him.
which was interesting.
Yeah.
It was a little awkward.
Well, there was definitely I felt some tension between Vidya and him because he kept,
Absolutely, because they kept cutting that, like they kept being in scenes together alone,
right?
Which I just feel like is weird.
There's definitely focus on specific girls, like the Komal, the little girl that had like the chip on her shoulder.
I thought she was like 12. Like every time I saw her, I'm like, man.
I think they did that on purpose. That's why they had her like playing with the boys in the middle of the street,
right?
And then all of a sudden, oh, she's there to try out. Because I was when they showed her for the first time, I was like, what's going on? Like, are they just trying to show how popular the sport is? And then all of a sudden, it's like, no, it's a little boy who's actually a girl. After the food fight scene, once again, we see that people don't want this team to be successful. Like, they don't care. When the head of the commission's like, you guys aren't going to the World Cup.
I didn't expect them to play guys and girls.
Yeah.
Or the men's team versus the women's team.
That was interesting too. And I don't believe it, but
I don't believe it either. And that's not even me being sexist.
Yeah.
I just think the men's team would probably would have destroyed the women's team.
Oh, and let's not forget the other aspect. The girl Preeti that she's dating, the captain of the cricket team, you know. So that's another thing that we learned that, we've asked, like, what's bigger, cricket or field hockey? And we know for a fact cricket is bigger, even in this movie.
They even say.
They make it very clear. He's like, oh, you're playing a silly little game.
What's funny, though, is we've heard the same arguments he made in the comments about field hockey. Like, these arguments that he said, like these ignorant, quote-unquote, arguments, I've read in the comments section. Now, I'm not saying people in the comments are ignorant. I'm just saying that it's clearly they must have specifically wrote that because that must be a very, very common criticism and critique of field hockey or other things that are not cricket.
Yeah.
I mean, we've received it for baseball, for liking baseball. You know, it's not a serious sport, it's whatever, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, it's not serious in regards to, like, people aren't going to kill themselves if they lose.
It's true, because there's few serious sports in the world.
None of our sports in the
Soccer
States are that
is definitely
serious.
one of them.
Yeah.
Not in the United States, though. Or football.
Football, yeah. People die at football games. They don't die at anything.
I mean, unless you go to a Raider game in American
Even
football.
then, nobody dies at Raider games.
Dodger games,
they
though.
Fight
Baseball.
Each other. Yeah, well, I don't know what the death count is at Dodger games.
I think it's 1.
They just give people brain damage. They're still alive. This movie, more than anything, didn't learn that much about field hockey. Learned a lot, I feel, about
culture.
Even more culturally about India and how people feel about things. This is another women empowerment movie, women in sports empowerment movie, which is fine. That's fine. But it came out before Dangal, so we can't say it was copying Dangal. It came out almost 10 years before Dangal, or 7 years before. So,
what did you feel about SRK being the lead? Obviously, we have no exposure to like who could have replaced him.
So I said it when we did the trailer reaction, and my feelings haven't changed. This movie was about him. You know, the girls were a major part of it, but it was definitely his movie, and you can feel it. You know, he's just got that star power, where even though it should have been him coaching and focus more on the girls, it was. I think
it was a redemption story. It was his redemption.
It was his redemption story more than anything else. I mean, people are probably going to complain that we keep comparing, but in Dangal, yes, it was a redemption story. It wasn't really a redemption story, but it was a girls fulfilling their father's dreams, but it was about family, and you felt that connection between the family. This one, it was more about him redeeming himself, and the girls were kind of bit players, you know.
I mean, it's kind of true because other than what's her name? Is it Adia? No, which is the one that doesn't propose, that says no?
That's Preeti.
She's the only character arc we have in the whole thing, other than SRK, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the main girl who said no the whole time because she changes, even though we both established we really don't think she'd really change.
Yeah.
But everyone else, they're kind of the same. I mean, yeah, you could say that, you know, the angry one isn't as angry at the end, but nothing really changed about her personally. You know,
no, they didn't have arcs.
Right. I mean, again, arguments can be made, but I fall in line with what you're saying. I definitely think that Kabir was the lead of the movie. Obviously, he's the main front and center on the poster, but it was definitely his movie with women's hockey being the backdrop. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm not saying I didn't like his performance or anything like that, but I almost felt like he was a distraction. Where I just felt like...
Where you think if they had a lesser known
actor who could have been...
Or if we got a little more history about the girls.
Yeah, see? I mean, and then that could have just... Then it would have put a shadow over SRK, and then he could have taken the back seat, which I feel like he needed to. Because at the end of the day, I don't care if he gets redemption for his loss. I don't. I never cared one time throughout the whole entire film. I don't care how many tears came from his face from the end of the movie. I didn't care at all because it's irrelevant. He had his shot. He blew it. So now his whole goal was to make sure that these girls didn't blow it too, right?
Yeah.
That's how I interpreted it. I didn't care if, like I said, I don't care if he became a hero. I don't care if he got his house back. I never once. You know, I felt bad for the mom because she had to move out. But other than that, I don't. Why should I care about what happens to SRK, or Kabir, I should say, because it's not his story, even though the movie obviously presented it that way, but I was indifferent.
Well, it wasn't a good enough setup. That's the problem. Like, we see he gets kicked out of his house. He has to move out of his village, town, wherever he's at, and then all of a sudden we go into the office of the field hockey people.
And then he acts super stern and never really kind of backs out.
But we don't see what happens before that. We don't see him getting approached. Like, for example,
we don't know if he went and got into drugs and alcohol or something.
Well, that doesn't even matter to me. Let's compare to the Mighty Ducks. Okay.
Great piece of cinema.
Gordon Bombay's a hothead. He's drunk. He's a hotshot lawyer. He doesn't care. Then he gets a DUI, and he's forced to do community service. He doesn't want to do this. He's forced to do this, and through being forced to coach his hockey team, you see him get redeemed. You see his character change. Well, we don't see this with that because from the get, Kabir Khan's character is like he didn't do anything wrong. Everything's stacked against him, but he didn't do anything wrong other than lose a game and shake someone's hand.
And show sportsmanship.
Yeah, that's it. He didn't do anything wrong. We just see this guy get screwed over. So it's not really a redemption story per se because he didn't do anything wrong in the first place. And it's hard for me personally to be like, oh, yeah, okay, he righted his wrongs because he didn't do any wrongs.
Right.
You know? And that's the issue.
Are you saying that's a problem with the movie or a problem with my take on the movie?
No, I'm saying that's a problem with the movie. I'm saying I'm agreeing with your take. I'm telling you why.
Oh,
you
no.
didn't
I was
relate
just
to him.
I was clarifying.
Yeah. No, so I think that's a part because we didn't see the lows. We didn't see that short spot of him getting kicked out, whatever. I mean, this is probably a kid's movie, so that's part of it, you know.
Was it a kid's movie?
I don't know. It didn't feel like an adult movie. I mean, it kind of touched on some adult themes, but then it backed away very quickly. You know, the focus of the game was the movie was the girls and him getting the girls up to speed. Him, you know, and it's the Bad News Bears. It's all these movies where he takes a bunch of ragtag misfits and whips them into shape and turns them into champions. You know, but even then we had short scenes of them being dysfunctional.
That's true.
You know?
I mean, not a lot of drill scenes either. There's not a lot of like teaching moments going on, in my opinion. Yeah, you're gonna have some drills, and yeah, there. You know, I want you to do, you know, left, right, and make sure you can recall the plays by memory to me or something like that, and pass. But it wasn't really. I don't know. It didn't build for me.
No, here's the things that happen. The girl from Punjab is angry. Preeti and Komal they don't want to pass the ball to each other because they had that fight over the bunk. That's the only reason why. You know, we towards the end of the movie, we kind of realize why Preeti wants to score all the goals a little more.
Right.
But, and really doesn't have an issue with Komal.
Which is ironic because if she would have if this were real life and they just talked to each other like human beings and just said, hey, my husband or my forced fiance is an asshole and like I want to show him that we're better than him or whatever.
Yeah.
The other girl would probably been like, all right, cool.
Yeah, she'd have been on board with it.
All right, I'll give you some passes. Or like, yeah, let's do it. Let's just show them both together.
There might have been some significant stuff that we missed, like when she knocks her stuff to the ground and she's got like the little looks like little pastries or something.
Right.
We don't.
The intricacies are lost to us.
Yeah, like I mean, here's what I picked up from that. I saw she had a small little bundle that was obvious why she missed it because it was so small, and we don't realize how relevant it is to her because they don't build that up. But maybe that it was relevant. Like maybe these were little pastries that her mother baked for her, and she was homesick already, and they're destroyed, and that's why she's mad. And I get that, but we don't ever establish.
If you don't set that up, you can't expect us to react to it.
Exactly. So she knocks to the ground, and then the bully girl, whatever you want to call her, Bindiya, she's like, "Oh, hey, come over here. You could be part of our clique." You know, it was a little odd. Like the whole, I think that whole bunk bed scene could have really set stuff up, and it failed to do so.
There's a lot of there. I feel like overall the movie was good. It was not just okay. It was better than okay because I've seen like really bad sports movies.
Yeah,
but it wasn't great.
I mean,
and it
was better than Sultan.
Absolutely,
way better than
not
Sultan.
Even close.
Yeah.
I would watch this movie twice before I watch Sultan one more time.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is there's a lot of shortcomings.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate side of filmmaking, and it could be the script problem, it could be the fact that there was two directors because I read that there was a director for everything and then there's a specific director for sports scenes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's usually two different divisions like that could lead to problems.
It could also mean they called him a director, but he could have been like a choreographer.
Well, he got credited as a director.
Oh, really?
According to Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, is the main source of knowledge in the world. But the thing is, though, a lot of these shortcomings could have came, like I said, could have come from the script, could have came from editing. Maybe there's a longer version of this movie, which probably isn't true in Indian cinema because they don't seem to have any problems with runtime.
Yeah, this is actually short.
Short, I get. But that's another thing too. Like, this movie could have been shorter. Mm-hmm. I felt like, usually that's a complaint for everything. That didn't come out of our mouth for Dongal, though. But this one definitely could have been shorter.
Yeah.
It could have been a lean, mean movie that was an hour and 40 minutes, 2 hours tops. And all of a sudden, the complaints we had, we don't have enough time to think about them.
Well, it could have, what they could have done is just eliminated that whole intro. You could get rid of the whole Kabir Khan intro part and just have this guy be like the lone wolf that
and people,
nobody knows
a news
about.
Reporter.
Well, I got a rebel. He's ready to coach the team, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
Kabir Khan? We can't have him coach the team. You need him to coach the team. And then he
all
comes
of a
in
sudden,
with his hair, like he walks in the door and there's a fan blowing his hair back. And like there's this epic music in the background. He walks in slow motion.
but the movie has a tendency, and it's throughout the movie, there's shots that the director chose to do that were completely artistic, quote unquote, but were completely unnecessary and over the top.
And right now it's everybody's favorite section of the review, the cutaway, where Daniel's going to compare some of the quote-unquote artistic shots that were used for dramatic effect in Chak, Bindiya.
Today we're going to be talking about the dolly zoom. And so for those who are unfamiliar with what a dolly zoom is a camera technique in which a camera operator uses a zoom lens and a dolly, hence dolly zoom. Now the idea is, as you'll see in this little computer-generated representation, courtesy of Wikipedia, the object or subject matter that is the main focus remains the same size the entire time. However, the background becomes distorted. It either becomes larger or it becomes smaller. And what it does is creates this psychological effect that you may or may not ever have realized, but it makes you feel uneasy. The first usage of this technique was in 1958 in the movie Vertigo, the classic by Alfred Hitchcock. And the technique is used multiple times throughout the film, and it is done so to create the sense of vertigo. And it was the first time anyone has ever seen it, and it has been copied many, many times since. The most famous example of this, besides Vertigo, arguably is from the 1975 film Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg. The setup for this usage of the dolly zoom is Chief Brody, up until this point in the movie, has heard about a potential great white attack in his beach that he basically was the sheriff of. And it isn't until the halfway point of the movie in which he actually sees a shark enter his bay that he protects. And the moment he has this realization that there is a real shark attack is when we get this infamous dolly zoom. Not only is this shot iconic because of the iconic stature of the film itself, it is also a very, very deep and personal character moment because we realize with Brody that this attack is real. Now, dolly zooms don't always have to be used for dramatic purposes. In this film, Chak Bindiya, the dolly zoom is used for comedic effect. There are two guys that are watching the women's hockey players, and they decide they want to hit on them. Through the visual language of cinema, we are able to understand that that is their goal, that they basically want to catcall these women. You sort of get a very personal character moment because you truly understand what they're thinking in their head just by a small camera technique. To wrap this up, I'm going to leave you with my personal favorite usage of the dolly zoom, and it's from my favorite movie, Goodfellas, directed by Martin Scorsese. This one is extremely subtle and is not as obvious as the previous three mentioned. The setup for this scene is Henry Hill and Jimmy Conway are meeting at a diner, and the world around them seems to be crumbling because people are ending up dead, and there's a lot of snitching going on, and Jimmy is a paranoid individual. And so finally, Jimmy and Henry have lunch together at this diner. And as we're watching right now, the camera's slowly pushing in and doing the dolly zoom because it's very subtle. Because Martin Scorsese wanted the viewers to feel that something was wrong at this diner scene. Something that wasn't really explicit, but just something was not right about these two meeting. And as we soon find out, Henry believes that Jimmy wants him dead by the end of this conversation. And so it's because of this slow, subtle effect that, in my opinion, this scene becomes even more impactful, regardless if a viewer notices or not. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this segment, and let's get back to the movie.
Let's talk about the World Cup when they get to the championship, World Championships. I I was shocked that they let them get beat 7-0 in the very first game. Like I figured they weren't gonna win, but
They got annihilated.
they got their asses handed to them, big time. And I was like, whoa, like that was kind of cool too. Like, I was like,
I like that
yeah,
because it wasn't just a close game where it's like, oh, we got to fight back. Like, no, you got to dig yourself up. You got to reevaluate everything at this point.
Exactly.
Like, you shouldn't be here.
right.
That's really what it was meant to be.
I mean, the Australian coach even says it. Like, how'd you guys even make it to the championship?
Which is okay. So I want to talk about that guy specifically. What do you think about analytics versus non-analytics? Because that guy clearly was using analytics to a lesser degree that we use today in like baseball and stuff like that. But SRK was like straight old school, like fundamentals and technique.
See, that's the thing is I don't think he was old school. I think it was they weren't given the funding, and I think
So
it's
he
something
didn't even,
that
if he would have had that, he would
they
have
were
taken
barely
advantage.
given enough money to go to the World Championships. They weren't going to give him money to put a scout up in a box to start,
I didn't think about it like that. I mean, I could still make my argument in my case.
No, you could. I mean,
because
he's still
it's not presented.
They didn't really present it either way.
But what you said
And
also makes sense.
And it doesn't. And that was actually I had an issue with that because they didn't build on it. I thought that was going to come up later that Australia was cheating, or like Australia, like either that he knew they had an advantage, but they never bring it up again. That it was.
He brought it up. He said they know that you don't pass with each other.
Well, they know that they scout you.
Yeah.
Like wait, they've been scouting you. They know your tendencies. And you're going to lose if you keep up with the tendencies.
But even old school minds know that scouting is a part of the game.
Yeah, and that was fine, but they made it a very heavy scene that they came down from upstairs with this printout of schematics of what the Indian team was doing. So to not really go back to that and never really touch upon it again, other than in the second half of the championship game, yeah, they come down with another, but it's not that big a deal. It didn't feel as important as it did the first time they present it to you, and it never really gets brought up during the tournament either. Because we never see Australia again. Like this would have been perfect to see cutaways of Australia's team destroying people, so that we have that eventual like clash of titans again at the end of the championship game, where the girls redeem themselves, and we're like a little more excited about the game because we see that Australia is the bad guy, but they didn't make Australia the bad guy. Australia didn't do anything in this game. They were just better than them in the first one. It's just there's little things I would have done, and maybe the Indian public doesn't care. But that's what I would do in this kind of film.
Well,
myself.
yeah, I mean, I think
because we're already hitting all the tropes that you've seen in these kind of movies already. Might as well do that.
I think they do care. I think the Indian audience would have cared if they would have done that. But I think the reality is, the director or screenwriter or whoever is responsible just did not develop it properly.
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to. Or maybe they didn't think about it at all and they were presenting it honestly like, no, it's just them being the stat people. And they could have went down another avenue of like, because sports has changed over the last 10 years and it continues to change. Overall, I mean, let's get to a rating. What would you rate this?
I enjoyed watching the movie. It had shortcomings, but at the end of the day, it was a basic cliche sports movie, and I like cliche sports movies, so I give it like a 7.5 out of 10. I mean, our rating scale's all over the place. It's a case by case basis for me. Like when I say give one movie a 7 and I give another movie a 7, they're not the same 7s. It's more like in the
how it made you feel.
Yeah, and it's more about comparing it to other movies in the same genre. Like. I forget what I gave Bahubali, but I would not compare Bahubali to this movie.
I think you said 8.
Yeah, but it's not. 8. Because they're in different
genres.
Yeah.
No, I know. For me, it's a 7, 6.5, depending on how like critical I want to be out of it. Like cinematically, from just outside, like just without taking story, just with taking story into consideration, it's like a 6.5.
Yeah.
But in terms of like its message and how it made me feel by the end of the movie, it was probably a 7. It is riddled with cliches and stuff, like you said, but it also had moments of tenderness. There was like the sexism, the racism, the parts of Indian culture that people in the comments have talked about, but now we're kind of seeing, which is kind of cool.
There was a scene where Kamal passes to Preeti and then says, show that idiot, and then she scores the goal, and that's the tying goal. That hit me in the feels a little bit. I was like, that was a good scene. That's what
I'm saying.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
There were definitely moments where it was great. I enjoyed it. Like I love. There's a shot and there's a shot where they're running, and then one of the girls stops to like take a breath, and then it does a quick smash cut to like no one's there, and she's like, "Oh, where did everyone go?" Which is a good way of like illustrating that feeling of, because I've been through it plenty of times because I can't run or keep up with the group. So like I'll take a pause for a second, and then all of a sudden I'm already getting lapped.
We hit 10,000 subs. We're not going to do the dance video anymore. We're going to show you Daniel running. That's going to be the 10,000 subs video.
I don't think anyone wants to do that. Watch me run.
You want to see him run.
My mom would always say, like, yeah, when you played baseball, you'd hit it, hit it to the fence or whatever, but then it looked like you just got stuck in the mud, like you're just running in slow motion, which is my own mother saying that. So I don't know, can't really refute that. But yeah, so it was a 6.5, 7. So let's briefly touch on all 3 cons. We've seen all 3. I'm not going to ask you which one's the best one, but out of the 3 sports movies, I think it's probably unanimous to say Dongal is the best one.
Yeah,
out of the 3.
Absolutely. But I see why SRK is such a big star.
Absolutely, because when people said Tom Cruise, like compared him to, I can totally see that charisma that Tom Cruise has.
I said that.
You said that?
Yeah.
Okay, well then Gian said. But I can see it too.
The way I looked at him in this movie and the way he made me feel, it made me feel like watching Will Smith.
Yeah.
Or watching, like, yeah, Tom Cruise is another one. Like, he has that,
he has an ability.
Yeah.
He has a range.
He might, and I'm not going to say he's like an excellent, like the best actor ever, but he's a good enough actor, and he carries a movie. You put him in any movie, that movie's going to be a hit.
We're assuming.
We're assuming. But he's got that star power, and he's got that, he's like John Wayne. John Wayne wasn't the best actor ever, but John Wayne was.
He can convey his characters.
Yeah, and John Wayne was probably, maybe the biggest actor ever, worldwide. Everybody knows John Wayne.
Everybody. They've at least heard the name, which is it's a pretty hard feat to do, because before we started this little journey we're on with YouTube, I didn't even know who SRK was.
Right.
I think we heard his name in our international cinema class, but out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, I'd have to say Dongal's the best of the bunch.
Yeah.
This was probably the second best, and then Sultan was the third best.
I don't know. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching. You know the drill. Smash that like button, ring that bell, hit the subscribe, leave us comments, let us know what you think. Like we said, Roman Rugdov 2.0 is going to be our next review. Make sure to check out our reaction videos if you have not done so already, and we will see you soon. Thanks for watching.